Hello and welcome to week 7. So what we're looking to do is to finally get to a point where we can take all the work that we've done so far, and a lot of this has been behind the scenes. So let's start out that we've taken our data, we've added some structure to it, something to give it some importance, some hierarchy. That was all done in our HTML exercise. Now we move forward to try to understand how to organize the data at a higher level. So we started with taxonomies, which is what is this information? What are some conventions as to how maybe we could group it, wording-wise and or concept-wise. This week we moved into sort of the more active area. How do we let an end user explore this data in order to solve some problems or to make it useful at all in general? So this week we move into putting all those together into what's called a wireframe. The wireframe is just a pretty basic representation of what this would look like on a screen. The advice that I give you is that really concentrate on taking your HTML plus your navigation. One big reason why we went through looking at all these different ideas about how to organize content is to use one or two of these. So if you didn't get a chance to look at all of them, I would just take a quick glance, or not a quick glance, but look through and see what's appropriate for your content. Hopefully that's not going to be too daunting. I just want to really get something down that we can start to look at and to iterate upon. And you can also look at other people's work, because you'll see basically that the conventions of how information are displayed are, well, there are conventions to it. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel on this one. But I will say that there are some tools that we're going to have used this week, one of which is called Figma. Figma is a really great tool because as we get into the very final deliverable, you'll want to do a sequence of items. So you could start now with a sketch, something really simple, whatever makes sense to you, to get some feedback to see if you're on the right track, and then create a little bit more fidelity by using Figma, or any drawing tool is fine, that will be able to realize and to show a little bit more detail, especially when it comes to text. Right now we don't use images, we don't use colors, we don't need any of that. We just really want to see that HTML structure. Let me move on to week 7. Yeah, so in this area is where you would share one wireframe, and what it's going to contain is 3 records. The same, really, it's going to be marking up using the same markup or structure, but giving a visualization that you did in the HTML exercise. So 3 records. Remember, we did one of those records was about using the database tags. I'm just saying this is 3 HTML records. So you use 3 records that have content in them, so we can look at how 3 records are displayed, and that's when we want to start really looking at what order are these records in? What options, perhaps, or filters are you going to allow somebody to manipulate the order that these things are in? And or are you going to use other conventions like cards, which aren't a list, but they're things that are arrayed in a different manner? So there's some options of how you could display those 3 records. And then at the very top, use the navigation items that you came up with last week. So we're only going to do one actual wireframe, but it's going to sort of pull all these elements together that we've been doing week after week, and it's going to be something that you could show an average person. They could look at it and say, oh, I understand this. So this is when, I guess we'll say, all that hard work pays off, that we see something. So that's the goal for this week. Next week, we're going to do what I'm just indicated as a storyboard, where we walk through the user actually using the navigation and doing something, but that's not a concern for this week. The final project is going to wrap up all of these things that you've done. So it's going to start with the sitemap. It's going to go into this storyboard. So you might want to take a picture of last week, because as I said, we always will be submitting our work in Canvas. So take a picture of it. That'll be just something I'll reference. If you're using the Figma environment, which I do recommend, you can, again, just send me a link to Figma, so you can paste that as a picture into Figma. If you have any difficulties using Figma, there's some tutorials I put together, but it's hopefully a pretty straightforward drawing tool. If anyone feels a lot of trepidation about doing this kind of work for the first time, let me know. I can either set up a one-on-one session or I could put together a Blue Jeans session. But I think once you dive into it, um, the goals are still not to be a great designer, but to just be able to convey all that work that you've done so far in a way that's visual and human readable. So it's an exciting week. We're almost done with this project, which will be due at the end of next week. And then we'll move into the final. So getting toward the end here, I know we're going to be running into the holidays. I will do my best to figure out how that lands. If anyone has any suggestions or concerns, let me know. I'm going to take a look at it right after I finish this video to make sure that we don't have that we can let you guys have a little bit of relaxation for the Thanksgiving weekend and not have to have a deliverable due that Monday, but let me just take a look at it again. All right, well, thanks everyone. Make sure to ask any questions and please share your work early so we can all learn from each other. And thank you for your hard work last week. It looked like some really great thoughts out there. So everyone make sure to be looking all the time at Mural. All right, cheers.